I want you to become Frankenstein.
The movie starts with Jensen Ames, an industrial worker and ex-convict, finding out that the steel mill he works at is shutting down, and they're not even paying the workers what they're owed. Angry and frustrated, the workers start protesting, but riot police quickly arrive and brutally beat them. When Jensen sees his co-workers getting hurt, he fights back and takes down a few cops before heading home. Later that night, after greeting his wife and checking on his baby, Jensen is unaware that a masked intruder has broken in. The intruder kills his wife, knocks Jensen out, places a murder weapon in his hand, and leaves after making a mocking shooting gesture. Jensen wakes up to find the police arresting him for his wife's murder. 6 months later, he is sent to Terminal Island Prison, where he's met by a ruthless guard, Ulrich. Ulrich sprays him with freezing water. Lets another officer hit him, and throws him into a cell with 3 inmates who plan to beat him up. But Jensen is a skilled fighter. By the time Ulrich checks in, all 3 prisoners are already knocked out. The next morning in the chow hall, Jensen is watched by fellow inmates Coach, Gunnar, and Liss, who recognize him as a former race car driver who ruined his own career. Suddenly, the hall goes quiet when Pachenko and his friend approach Jensen, taunting him by spitting in his food and calling him a wife and child killer. Jensen snaps and attacks Pachenko, but the fight is broken up by guards. He is then taken to see Claire Hennessy, the prison warden. She has reviewed his record and knows he's a skilled driver. She offers him a deal. She wants him to become the new Frankenstein. The real Frankenstein died on the operating table after his last race, but no one knows it yet. That means anyone could take his place under the mask. Frank was a fan favorite, a racing legend, and Hennessy isn't ready to let that go. The show's ratings have dropped since his death, so she needs a legend to live on. According to rules, 5 wins mean freedom. Since Frankenstein already had 4, Jensen only needs 1 more victory to get out. Jensen isn't sure if he wants to risk his life for this, but Hennessy gives him no choice. She threatens him with solitary confinement if he refuses, ensuring he stays quiet about her secret. Left with no other option, Jensen plays along.
I want you to become Frankenstein. The audience wants to see Frank again. Win 5 races, you go free. Those are the rules. You'll need to spend your incarceration in solitary.
He's taken to the prison's auto shop, where he meets Coach and his crew, the mechanics who maintain Frankenstein's car. They introduce him to the heavily modified Mustang V8 Fastback. It's equipped with both defensive and offensive weapons, but ammunition is only loaded on race day to prevent escape attempts. Not that escaping is possible. The prison sits on an island, and the only way out is a small bridge, constantly guarded by police and helicopters. Only Jensen's team and a few select guards will know he's the new Frankenstein. Hennessy controls everything in this prison, and she won't risk the truth getting out. Later, Jensen learns how the race works. It has 3 stages. In the first 2, he needs to eliminate as many rivals as possible. In the third, it's all about speed. Whoever crosses the finish line first wins. Each driver has a navigator, usually women brought in from a female facility. The only exception is Joe. He prefers a male team member because he goes through female navigators so fast that it makes the audience uncomfortable. Liss introduces Jensen to the top racers in the prison yard. There's 14K, a Triad member and MIT graduate, Hector Grimm, a crazed psychopath who idolizes Hennessy, Slovo Pachenko, the Aryan Brotherhood leader, and Travis Colt, a former NASCAR star who fell from grace. Their conversation is cut short when Joe and his crew show up to mock Jensen and send a message to Frankenstein. This race is just between them. Just then, a van arrives, bringing back inmates from work duty. Jensen notices something strange. They're wearing GPS tracking bracelets. It hits him. His wife's killer had one too. On race day, Jensen gets into character, wearing Frankenstein's outfit, mask, and even his ring. His presence immediately brings back the show's lost viewers. Coach warns him not to talk to the other racers. Frankenstein never did, and it added to his mystique.
Don't talk to the other drivers. Frank never did, part of the mystique. Let the mask do the work.
However, he's allowed to remove his mask inside the car since the windows are mirrored. Case, who knows the truth, is there too. When Jensen asks why she's in prison, she coolly admits she killed a cop for being a bad husband. The race begins. Weapons won't activate until the second lap. So for now, it's all about speed and brute force. Drivers slam into each other, trying to push opponents off the track. Thanks to Case's tips, Jensen keeps up with Joe and even overtakes him by using a secret shortcut. Then, Hennessy activates the shields and weapons. Drivers must roll over specific manholes to arm their cars. Chaos erupts as bullets fly. Hennessy also turns on the deadly traps, and Grimm takes full advantage, ramming a driver straight into one. He slows Joe down by spilling oil onto the track, but his own race ends when 14K fires a missile at him, sending him off course. Joe finishes him off by running him over. Meanwhile, Jensen finally gets his weapons online, but his machine gun jams. Case climbs onto the hood to fix it, making her an easy target as the other racers rain bullets on her. Jensen dodges every attack and gets Case back to safety in the passenger seat. He steals a defense manhole from Colt, but just like with Frank, none of his car's defense systems work, and the rear shield won't last much longer. Thinking fast, Jensen comes up with a plan. He has Case unhook the napalm and sit on his lap. Then, he launches her chair with the napalm attached. It hits Colt's car, covering it in the flammable liquid. Case then tosses the car's lighter at it, setting Colt's car on fire and knocking him out of the race. With Colt gone, Jensen faces off against Joe again. But then, he spots Pachenko, making the same hand gesture as the man who killed his wife. Distracted, Jensen loses focus, giving Joe the chance to push his car back, making him finish last while Pachenko takes first place. 3 drivers are dead, and 6 remain for the next stage. After the race, Coach and his team check Jensen's car and find nothing wrong. It should have worked fine. Jensen confronts Hennessy, refusing to race anymore because he now knows Pachenko killed his wife. He realizes the entire setup was meant to frame him, so she could get a new driver to replace Frankenstein. Hennessy doesn't admit it, but she shows him a picture of his daughter in foster care, warning him to play along if he ever wants to see her again. Defeated, Jensen returns to the yard and talks to Coach. He asks why Coach doesn't wear a number, and Coach reveals that he was actually granted parole 3 years ago. But after spending so long inside, he couldn't bring himself to leave. The world outside had changed too much. He also says he doesn't believe Jensen killed his wife.
What did they send you away for?
Oh, plenty. And nothing. To what do we owe the pleasure of your company?
That night, while working on his car, Jensen sees Pachenko walking by and secretly follows him to his pit. Pachenko's team captures him, and Pachenko punches him before picking up a heavy tool to smash his head. He doesn't care about Hennessy's so-called protection. But just before he can strike, Liz stabs Pachenko in the back with a pen, saving Jensen. Jensen seizes the moment, grabbing a metal shard from the ground. He stabs his captor and knocks him and his friend out. Then he goes after Pachenko. He beats him up, slams him into boxes, and doesn't stop until Pachenko confesses. Hennessy ordered a hit on Jensen's wife, and Ulrich was the one who took him there. Furious, Jensen is ready to kill Pachenko, but Ulrich arrives with another guard and stops him. The next day, just before the second stage of the race, Pachenko taunts Jensen with the same hand gesture, but Jensen doesn't take the bait. Instead, he deliberately drives slowly and heads into a tunnel to speak with Case in private. He questions her, suspicious about Frank's car malfunctioning in 2 races. He even threatens to throw her out of the car if she doesn't tell the truth. Case admits she sabotaged Frank's rear weapons. Hennessy promised her freedom in return, but she insists killing Frank wasn't the plan. Hennessy just wanted him to lose and stay trapped in the race. Now that Jensen has his answer, he speeds up and gets back into the race, ignoring Joe for now. His real target is Pachenko. They try to push each other off the track, but Jensen takes the weapons lane instead of defense, confusing everyone. Then, in a bold move, he spins the car around and fires at Pachenko while driving backward. After doing enough damage, he turns back and hits the smoke, causing Pachenko to crash into a concrete barrier. Jensen stops, walks over, and snaps Pachenko's neck, avenging his wife. Meanwhile,
Hennessy. I know. She's next.
Joe swaps his navigator mid-race, and Hennessy decides it's time to unleash her secret weapon, a massive multi-weapon tanker truck called Dreadnought. The massive truck is insanely powerful and wastes no time catching up to the drivers, instantly taking out two weaker competitors. Since it belongs to the Warden, it has an unfair advantage. It can enter buildings and take shortcuts, allowing it to appear at the front of the race. The truck, known as the Dreadnought, brutally kills 14K's navigator before using chains to trap his car and destroy it with gunfire. Now, only Jensen and Joe remain. Facing this unstoppable machine, they realize they need a strategy. Jensen contacts Joe through his communicator, and they agree to work together, dodging the truck's relentless attacks. They position their cars on either side of it. When a hidden trap appears ahead, a manhole that requires 4 wheels to activate, they time it perfectly, hitting it with 2 wheels each. The trap springs up, forcing the truck to crash. With that, the second stage of the race is over. Only Jensen and Joe qualify for the final round. Later that evening, Joe visits Jensen and points out something odd. His voice sounds just like Frank's. He doesn't press for answers, but the suspicion lingers. Meanwhile, the Warden, Hennessy, and Ulrich realize Jensen is too much of a threat. They decide he must be eliminated since the Frankenstein mask can always be passed on to someone else. The next day, just before the final race, Ulrich sneaks a bomb under Jensen's car, while Hennessy distracts everyone with a speech about racing being their destiny. When she mentions that this could be the first time a driver wins their freedom with a 5th victory, Jensen has a chilling realization. Nobody has ever won 5 times because the races are rigged. The system makes sure no one ever gets out. Coach overhears this and later, back in the auto shop, shows Jensen an important detail in a video of Grimm's death. It sparks an idea. Jensen instructs Liz to add a small reserve fuel tank to his car, then approaches Joe with a new plan. As Jensen changes into Frank's signature outfit, Hennessy pays him a visit. She hands him his release papers but makes a new offer. If he wins, she wants him to stay in prison and continue being Frankenstein, because to her, the track is where he belongs. Jensen's ex tells him he's not daddy material and that an ex-con can't provide a good life for their daughter. Staying in prison would be an act of love. He doesn't respond but puts the release papers in his pocket before heading to the race. Before he starts, Case admits that Hennessy told her to stop him if he was about to win. But Jensen isn't worried. The race begins and Ulrich controls the manholes, making sure they only open when Joe drives over them. He then starts shooting at Jensen, damaging his back shield so badly that Jensen decides to drop it. Joe dodges it easily, having already learned this trick from Frank. Hennessy activates a defense manhole to make the race more exciting for viewers, but Joe destroys it with a rocket. He keeps firing more rockets, but Jensen dodges them, letting them hit a weak wall, the same one damaged by the explosion that killed Grimm. This was all part of their plan. The final blast weakens the wall completely, creating an opening for them to escape. Hennessy, furious, shuts down the live stream and sends every available cop after them. She tries to detonate the bomb in Jensen's car, but nothing happens. Coach and his men had already removed and deactivated it. As they reach the bridge, the police are closing in. Jensen releases an extra half-gallon fuel tank, creating a massive explosion that blocks their pursuers. The two convicts split up. Joe takes one road while Jensen takes another, drawing all the helicopters toward himself. Before leaving, Case agrees to help Jensen with the final part of his plan. Hennessy had already given her release papers, meaning she's officially free. As they drive past some construction cranes, Jensen jumps out of the car and hides among them while Case takes over the wheel. She only drives a few more miles before helicopters block her path with a wall of fire. Stepping out of the car with her hands up, she's now wearing Frank's clothes and mask. Since most people don't know about the identity switch, the cops mistake her for Frank, arrest her, and take her back to prison, giving Jensen the chance to escape. Jensen meets up with Joe, and together they board a freight train. Meanwhile, back at the prison offices, Ulrich is thrilled. The show's ratings are skyrocketing, and gifts are already pouring in. But when Hennessy opens a gift box from Ulrich, it turns out to be the bomb that had been placed under Jensen's car. It explodes, killing both of them. Outside, Coach is seen holding the detonator. 6 months later, Jensen and Joe have started a new life in Santa Rosalia, Mexico, running their own auto shop. Jensen has also regained custody of his daughter. Case, now officially released from prison, visits them, bringing along a racing car for them to check out.